Welcome, everyone. This is Samara Grace Daniels, and this is 9/9 of 2021. So welcome to the monthly Mother Mary call, where we try to make sense of what's happening in the world, and if nothing else, where we share laughter and joy, compassion, and community. So welcome one and all on this call tonight. I'm so excited to see Carmel from Australia, Francoise from Canada, my friends who live in different states here in the US, and it's just an extraordinary opportunity to realize what some people call the oneness. You know, here we are, all of us different, all of us living our own lives with our own concerns and our own stuff going on. But when we join like this, we really can create this kind of oneness of heart and mind and spirit. My heart is so happy to see you all. And I say again, thank you for joining in, because each time we join each other energetically in this way, it's kind of like the energy of light and laughter and joy and well-being takes a breath and extends to each and every one of us. So whatever your day was like, take a breath, realize we're all in this together. There's Carmen going, take a breath and just realize, you know, it's a strange and wonderful journey that we're on, but we're not alone. And I think that the aspect that we get to actually see tonight on Zoom is that we're not alone. And that despite our geography, despite our different backgrounds and our different lives, we're not alone. There's many people seeking to have a higher vision of this world and to live their best life. And I'm excited and happy to see everyone who's here now and everyone who listens later on. So take a breath, and I'm just going to take a moment to bring Mother Mary in and just really invite for each and every one of us the highest good and the highest light and the greatest clarity. Because I think sometimes with all of the things that are going on, we can lose our own sort of GPS clarity of, you know, what's right for me, what's loving for me, what is it that I might choose, you know, at this time. I want to begin, some years ago, Mother Mary gave me a message, and I'm working on a book right now about all the exciting things Mother Mary has said. But I think this is sort of this call, and all of us are already on the call, quite literally, but just take this in, if you will. So from Mother Mary, to all my beloveds, it is time for you to stop praying to me and instead join with me to change the world that has lost its way. I ask of you to not only love my son, but to now embody his promise to you. He told you that all of the many miracles he could do, you could do, and more. It is true, and it is time. All around you is the evidence of a world lost from its creator and from the source of love from which you came. Floods and fires, earthquakes and tsunamis, devastation and pandemics are not the punishment of a vengeful God. They are the signs of a world that has lost its balance and does not live in harmony and appreciation of all that has been gifted to you. Brother against brother, rich against poor, one religion against another, one tribe decimating another. All of this turmoil stems from greed and a misunderstanding of the nature of love and the right use of power. Will this be your legacy for your children and grandchildren? Is this what you came to create? You are the emissaries of the light. You are the hearts and hands of my love. Eons ago, you made a promise to come when there would be the most to gain and the most to lose. Now that time has come, and I call your promise due. It is time to go forth and give what you have to offer. Center yourself in peace. Choose to be fully aligned with the promise you came to fulfill. Feel the dreams of the earth that lie within you and are ready to be born. Allow yourself to be filled with the promise and possibilities that dwell in that dream. Now take a breath and take the first step toward what you know is yours to offer. You will not fail. It is time, and I am with you, Mother Mary.
That's beautiful.
So I read all that, and I felt today and tonight, with it being 9/9, as we're ending this year and coming up on the anniversary of 9/11, and where we've just gotten out of, for the most part, Afghanistan. It to me, it comes a time to question how do we land and create a vision? How do we land that? Because if we look at our policy in Afghanistan, never mind about Osama bin Laden, what we were trying to do is bring democracy to a tribal culture. Didn't work very well because that was so ingrained. If we go back in time to the conquering of America, what did we do to the native peoples? We said, oh, this is our land, get out of our way. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And we pushed them aside and made light of their belief system and their way of living and minimized their contribution. And so it came to me tonight, and I'm gonna bring Mother Mary in just a moment, but I just wanted to kind of give us a philosophical place to land. How do we know what's right? How do we know what's right for anybody else? How do we know what's right for ourselves? And what came to me was this feeling that most of the time we believe that what's right for us must be right for everybody. And of course it's not. And so then we become antagonistic toward what we see as people behaving in ways that aren't right. And so I'm going to take us back for just a moment to a different idea. And that is, what if we came to our world as if we had just landed from a spaceship? What if we put back into our hearts and minds the eyes of a child of wonder and looked at it differently and looked at each other differently? What might happen? What could that look like? And so, as you know, I've been talking as Samara. I did read something that Mother Mary had shared. Now I'm going to ask you to put mute on for just a moment, and I'm going to bring Mother Mary in with the full message, and then we'll take the mute off to take any questions that you guys have. So thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming, because what that tells me already is you're curious. You're curious, like what more, what else, what could I see, feel, or know that's different? If you weren't curious, you wouldn't be here. And one of the most engaging and wonderful and lovely qualities of children is their curiosity, right? They're curious. What is that? How does that work? Who's this new person? And so what I want to instill in you tonight is to erase for a little while judgment and comparison and bring back innocence. Now, what does that mean exactly? It means that when you're out in the world, look for some opportunities where it's safe to be curious. Now, I did say safe. I don't want any arguments in Costco. I don't want anybody yelling at each other in line in the grocery store. That's not what I'm talking about. But when there's an opportunity to be curious, to say, I didn't see it that way. Could you tell me more about what that is that you're imagining or seeing? We start to dismantle this warfare that's going on, where it's all about blame and judgment, and you should do this and you shouldn't do that, and all of that. And what that's doing, it's having a cascading effect and a very destructive effect, because it's all about the chaos of thinking, I'm right and you're wrong. So to dismantle that, we need to have safe opportunities to be curious, to be curious. Because if you want to see a different world, you have to understand that the lots and lots of people have their own ideas of what that could or should or might look like. And so before you take your bulldozer into the construction site, it's a good idea to have a design, to have a plan, to have an image or a vision of what is it that people are really searching for. And when you think about that, you realize really it's fairly simple. If you're going to land, Samara was saying, you just landed a spaceship on the Earth, you look around and you realize the very first and glaring issue is the toxicity of the planet as a result of past choices. You can't miss it. You look at the water that's polluted, you look at the air that's polluted, you look at the land that has no more nutrients in the soil, you're like, oh, okay. And what that has done then is it creates sort of a frenzy around, I'm going to keep my resources and never mind about, what you might need. So the very first curiosity I want you to have is, how can we create clean water, clean air, nutritious soil, and a balanced way of being? Now, I'm not answering that. I'm just inviting you to begin to hold that as sort of the beginning of a conversation that you can have with others. Again, I'm emphasizing the word conversation and also safety. We don't want any more arguments. But if you begin to focus your attention, rather than focusing it on who's wearing a mask and who's not wearing a mask and who's been vaccinated and who hasn't, to come all the way back and realize the virus in a way is partially due to the contamination of the earth, partially. So you begin to see, what can we do? And even more so, what can I do? Can I bring some wonderful plants into my home that create a better oxygen flow? Yes. If I have enough time and money, can I take a couple of plants to someone else that either doesn't have the money or perhaps doesn't have the awareness that these plants bring oxygen? So just imagine for a moment, rather than arguing with the neighbor who has a different political viewpoint, you say, I was in the store the other day and they had these wonderful plants, and I understand that they help with having more oxygen. So I bought an extra one for you. Wow. Wow. That might seem like a very small thing, but it's not. It's not. It's creating a focus on common ground rather than leading a mental attack on disparity. So that's something very simple and very easy to do. You can, whatever they call these things, you can Google which plants bring the best balance in the house and which plants are best for my location. And then, as I said, buy at least one extra one and take it to a neighbor. Take it to a neighbor. Wear your mask if that's what you're all doing, but leave it on the doorstep with a little note. One of the things that I'm doing is creating a better environment of oxygen for everyone that I know and love. Wow. 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 Another thing that you can think about doing, because again, this is very, very simple, is just in your own prayers and in your own envisioning, imagine the children of this world who will be inheriting this planet, having the capacity and having the tools to clean the air, to clean the water, to bring nutrients back to the soil, and to feel the joy of that. So that rather than loading them down with worry about this planet, what you're doing is engendering, I might be this age or that, I might not have the time that we need, but, little grandmother here wants to give to you whatever you would need to do that. So you teach them and you show them and you empower them to do whatever they feel would be best for the planet. Because truthfully, if you all don't do a little bit, it's not looking really good for your planet. Because if all the attention is on disparity and arguing and hatred and judgment and who's better than whom and this and that, the planet is what's suffering. Your environment, your food, your water, that's what's suffering. So turn your attention in that way. Learn about the plants. Learn about how I can have, a tomato plant in my backyard and give my neighbors some extra tomatoes, whatever that would be. But begin healing the earth. Because if you look at the bodies of humanity, the physical bodies of humanity, that right now so many are suffering with the COVID and with other things, where does that come from? Where does a lack of health come from? Think about this. Where does a lack of health come from? It comes from not giving yourself what you need. And that's not only saying, I need to buy organic food and this and that. That's lovely, that's fine. But if you're living in a planet that's degrading, can you see how that will also degrade your capacity to stay healthy? I'm not saying you won't. I'm just saying it doesn't give you sort of that extra oomph that would be lovely for you. And so begin with the planet, begin with the earth and the air and the water. Begin with gratitude. Begin with small steps that you can easily take to increase the oxygen in your own environment and to offer that to friends or family or neighbors, again, as you feel to do so. Because the healing of this planet and the healing of the environment are essential to what you would like to see in the future. Along with that, what I would say is understanding that arguing with people adds even more toxicity to the air. I mean, it's common sense, right? So the next thing you can do, in addition to what I just said, that is simple and very low cost, play music. Any kind of music that you like. Harmonize your environment. Harmonize your body, harmonize your heart and your mind and all of that. Dance if you like, sing if you like. But what music does is, just as the plants clear the oxygen in the air, the music brings this harmonic of healing, which would be truly, truly delicious. For those of you that enjoy to do these kinds of Zoom things, get together with your friends, play some music and say your prayers for each other and for the light and the love of this planet. Because when you send the music out, it's like a homeopathic remedy for all of the anger and vitriol that has been filling the airwaves. So music is the second part of this healing. The third thing is what I call the sacred pause, P-A-U-S-E, although I love all your animal pause, P-A-U-S-E. And that is when something is happening in your life or with another person, where your immediate response would be one of anger, upset, blame, judgment, whatever. So learning to take a moment and just breathe again and say, I wonder what they believe that would lead them to say or do that. So now you're back in your own field of awareness, your own energy field of awareness. You're not engaged in a field that's being summoned, if you do engage, by this other person. So they're in upset. If you engage, then you're both in upset. So they're in upset. So you just take a moment and you say, what is it that they believe that would lead them to say or do that? And then in that pause, you can reflect on what you might say or do in that moment. And sometimes it's leave the room. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes it's to say, I don't see it like that, but I really don't have to argue. Because all of these arguments are really futile. They're futile. If someone is convinced that the vaccine has a chip that will make you a robot for the aliens, there's not much you can say. So my suggestion is you say, I don't see it that way, but bye. Because if you want to be truly an emissary of the light, what's required is that you create your own field, energy field of peace, presence, compassion, clarity, and on good days, joy. And on the good days, when I say joy, what I mean is, maybe you made yourself a beautiful meal to share with friends. Maybe you took a walk and saw a sunset. Maybe you cuddled with your cats or dogs. Maybe you had a wonderful conversation with a friend. Again, coming back to that idea of a sacred pause, when that's over, the meal's over or the friend is gone or whatever, instead of going right to the next thing, pause, the pause that refreshes, right? And just let yourself cellularly feel and take in that nurturance, that nourishment of what has just occurred. Because what's happening in the world is this disparity, arguing, toxicity, etc. And so keeping your own field clear, peaceful, and full of light is job one with the things that I've suggested or other things that you have found. And then from that, the joy that you just sat and sort of reflected on, like, oh, that was so yummy, that meal, or it was lovely to see that sunset. It gives you sort of a storehouse to draw upon, because we want you to be full of your own light, full of your own peace, full of your own love, so that when you are out in the world or when you are talking to someone, you keep that peace, you keep that joy, because you have lots and lots stored in your heart, in your memory, in your cells. And what it does then is it allows you to be far more understanding of someone who has a very different viewpoint than you have in this moment. The world is going through sort of a whirligig, those rides at the state fair, that whirl you around and turn you upside down and all this and that. And it's happening because you're all being invited to find your own center, to find your own light, and to live that, not by making other people wrong, but by carrying that field, which is your connection to God, light, Mother Mary, whatever, and your connection to the earth, to Gaia, etc., that allows you to be a clear channel of yourself to then interact with other people. Because the world doesn't need more argument. It really doesn't. But it needs more vision. And so where does vision come from? You know, how do you get a vision of a new garden or whatever? Well, if you just had an argument about whether aliens are taking over the vaccine or not, you're not really very capable of creating a vision that's worth having, in my opinion. So by having this peace, by letting yourself be in that peace, now what you do is you sit and say, what is mine to offer? What would clean air look like in my home? Oh, these plants, okay. How could I extend that? All right, bring a plant to a friend. How could I extend that? And here's where, once you've built up your storehouse, and once it's safe to do so in your own communities and your own rules and regulations that are going on, you go out in your communities and you look at the water and you find out who, if any, is working on this issue. How could I potentially get involved with this? And it can be very simple. It could be an organization, or it could be that you decide to take your friends and do a water blessing. Any of you that have read Dr. Emoto's books and seen his pictures, it could be that simple. It could be that simple. Because when you're clear and you're in your own field of light, you are more than capable of changing the cellular memory of that water, because you have cleared your own cellular disposition, if you will. So having a water blessing is a beautiful thing to do. Inviting friends is a beautiful thing to do. Again, when it's safe and in the various protocols you're all involved in right now. And so what begins to happen is that you have filled yourself with your own clarity and light. You have withdrawn from argument. You have withdrawn from argument. And instead, you're choosing to take the actions that are in harmony with clean air, clean water, and new soil. And so you become both a vessel for it and a participant in all that you're creating. And so that's a much more profound and healthy way to than arguing with people about whether or not to wear a mask. Because, as I said, if they're not ready to listen, then you're just wasting your breath. And we don't want you to waste your breath. So that's really the secret now. When you think about projection, you know, what is projection? As a Jungian scholar would say, projection is when you believe that you're right regardless. And therefore, anyone else that has a different opinion is bad, wrong, or the enemy. Why is there projection? Projection happens from unhealed shadow emotion, unhealed beliefs. Now, we could say all of you go to therapy for the next 20 years, but I don't think we want to do that. So what I'm saying is, by calling in your own light, by taking responsibility for your own light, it's very unlikely that you would do any projection, because projection comes from a lack of self-value, from a lack of self-worth, and therefore this one's the enemy and that's the one that's going to do this and that and this and that and this and that. So to become sovereign, which is what I want for all of you, to become sovereign is to be your own light, loving yourself and your life, and able to interact and love those around you, even those you don't agree with, although you don't have to invite them to dinner. So it becomes easier and easier for you to be in the world while it's going through these machinations while the whirligig is still going on, because you realize some people don't want to get off the ride. At least not yet. They just don't. And so you decide, well, I'm getting off that ride. I'm going to be the love and light that I am. I'm going to be an emissary of light. I'm going to be a sovereign soul. I'm going to be a source of healing and love, regardless of what anyone else is doing. And so you claim your sovereignty, you allow your sovereignty, and you take that and then you run with it, I guess I want to say. You become this emissary of light. I don't know what else to call it, but I'm not saying it's easy, but it's really pretty simple. You begin to realize, do I want to argue? Or do I want to be at peace? Now, am I saying, be a pushover, don't speak up? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Because when you're sovereign, you very clearly say, no, I don't want liver for dinner or whatever it is. You're clear. It's not about being a pushover, but it is about realizing that if I want my energy to be sovereign, if I want to be sacrosanct, I cannot argue in a meaningless way with someone who is not listening anyway. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take my energy and turn it towards what would love do here? What would be healing? What would be enlivening? What would be lovely? So here we are on 9/9. And the rest of this year is really about settling into your sovereignty. Let it be joyous. Let it be sort of a party in your own heart. Make the meals you love. Walk where you feel inspired. Talk to your friends. But most of all, realize you each have the capacity to improve this planet, even if that's just buying one plant. But I'd rather you bought two and gave one to a friend. So for tonight, I'm going to end the video, and I'll be taking questions from those who were kind enough to join us tonight. But I hope to see lots and lots of you down at the greenhouses, or growing your own, or borrowing from someone who's already got all these plants, and say, just give me a little slice over here and I can do my own. So much love, darlings, much love. And we're stopping the recording. Namaste.